What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and this is Motorola Edge 2025 Camera Tips and Tricks. Now this phone has a lot of really awesome cameras, and I want to show you in this video how to make the most of them. So let's get started. So this is the Motorola Edge 2025. Now this phone has already been very successful for Motorola, and for a good reason. We're getting a lot of impressive specifications with this device, and despite this being a mid-range smartphone, it is packed full of features, and that extends even to the cameras. So with this phone, we're getting a triple camera setup on the back, with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 50 megapixel ultra wide angle camera that can capture images at up to 122 degrees, and finally, we're getting a 10 megapixel 3x telephoto camera. And having a telephoto camera on a device like this makes this phone especially impressive. And then within this hole punch, we're getting a 50 megapixel front-facing camera. Now if you're looking for a quick and easy way to access the camera app on the device, all you have to do is simply double press on the power button and the camera immediately appears. Now you can do this from anywhere throughout the operating system. Again, just double press on that button and then you can quickly get to your camera. Now another way to quickly get to your camera is by simply twisting the phone. And then as you can see, the camera app pulls right up. Now this feature is located in the gestures part of the settings. So go to the gear icon in the shade here. Then from there, go down to gestures. And then from there, go down to quick capture. And there's actually another cool trick with this. So if you go to the settings, you'll see that there are other options. So if you wanted to always open up the front facing camera instead, you can pick front. And then now we'll give it a try. And you can see it pulls up the front-facing camera. Now we'll go back to the settings, and there is one other option here. So quick capture, and then you can see this one called auto. So basically, once you select auto, if you twist it in portrait mode, it'll open up the selfie camera. So there we go, it did work. And then if you twist it in landscape, it opens the rear camera. Just like that. So that's a really awesome way to get to the camera app here on the device. So here's how things look on the camera app. You can see the various options for the different cameras on the device. So if you go over to 3, that does activate the 3x telephoto camera. And it's really awesome that this telephoto camera is, of course, telephoto, which means that it has an optical zoom, which does make a big difference over a digital zoom. We have seen with a lot of mid-range and budget smartphones that those devices typically don't have a dedicated telephoto, and instead, the zoom function is simply just cropping in. And it certainly has lived up to the hype with this device. Now then from there, we can go back to 1, so the main camera once again, and then 0.5 takes us over to the ultra-wide camera. So with that, we can fit a lot more content into a single frame. And then the flower icon on the side here is for the macro mode. So there is no dedicated macro camera on this device, but at least when you put it in that mode, when the phone is up close near an object, it does do a bit of a better job taking a macro image. Now, honestly, I feel like just using the telephoto camera and taking a photo close up does actually do a better job than that dedicated macro mode. But I definitely recommend that you try out everything here and then kind of see what works better for you. But oftentimes I feel like the dedicated macro mode really doesn't do much. Now, even though this device has a 50 megapixel main camera, by default, it doesn't actually capture images in 50 megapixels. So what you'll need to do is go over to the More tab and you'll see this option called Ultra Res. So if you go there, it'll actually capture the full 50 megapixel photos. So we'll take a photo right now and I'll show you the difference. So basically, when it's in 50 megapixels, you're just getting way more detail here. You can see how much I can zoom in on this plant and how much detail is being retained. So that's really just one example of why the 50 megapixel mode is so awesome. But the reason why it's not the default is just because these images do take up a lot more space on your device. But going back over to the main photo mode, there's a lot of good stuff up top here on the camera app. So the first option here is actually for Google Lens. Google Lens has been one of my favorite features with any smartphone that I'm using it with. Actually, you can use it with iPhones as well using the Google app, but I love that it's built in here within the actual camera app. So if I take a photo of this plant, for example, it's gonna look up the plant and show me where I can buy it, a little bit more information about it as well, and really anything you take a photo of, it can identify it and tell you more. So especially nowadays where there's an AI overview, that especially gives us even more value here. Now we'll go back and you can see there's also an option for translate. So if you do see text that you want to immediately translate, you can also do that here as well. So it's definitely very convenient having Google Lens right there. Then up top here, we have the camera flash. So you can have the flash off. You can have it on at all times, or you can have it on auto. Now I'm sure the camera flash is pretty self-explanatory, so you get the idea. Now this button on top allows us to switch between the natural photo mode or enhanced. So with enhanced, you're getting a more vibrant and bright color style. It's really up to you, but I know a lot of people prefer this more enhanced, kind of more artificial, but brighter style. So if you do want that, it is here. And even though you can see the icon right up top, I feel like that's actually a pretty decently hidden feature where a lot of people would prefer to switch it. So definitely give both a try and then go with whichever you prefer. Now, in addition to that, you can see 3x4, so you can switch the aspect ratio of your images. So you can do 1x1 or square. You can also do 9x16 or 16x9, which is great for video thumbnails. And then there is the full size of the phone's display, which you have here as an option as well. And this phone does feature a 20x9 aspect ratio. We also have a timer up here, so you get 3 seconds, 10 seconds, or no timer. And then down here in the corner, there is a filter option. So definitely a lot of cool filters here on the device. I actually think a lot of these look really nice. So I could see using these for a certain photo shoot. And many of these actually look a lot better than the typical filters you'd apply after the fact with your images. There's even grayscale here too. So just a lot of cool options when it comes to filters. Now taking a look at this bottom slider, we have slow motion. And then up top here, we do have an option for a flash with slow motion. And then if you do slow motion in full HD, you get 120 frames. If you do it in regular HD or 720p, you get 240 frames. So that's a nice ability to have here, especially with this phone being a mid-ranger. Then moving on to video, we have a flash that you can have on when you're taking a video. We also have this option called horizontal lock. So basically your screen will remain fixed during recording, whether you change to portrait or landscape. Definitely a more unique feature that I don't see very often. Then up top here, you can choose between different aspect ratios. So you can do the full size of the phone's display, or you can do 9x16 or 16x9. You can also mute your video if you want to by tapping on that microphone. And then you can also change the resolution of your video. So you can do full HD or 1080p at 60 frames per second. But keep in mind that if you switch to 4K, you can only do 30 frames per second. And then for selfie videos, you are limited at 4K 30 or 1080p 30. So there's no 60 FPS for the front-facing camera. Also for the front-facing camera, there is this beauty mode, which I typically turn off because I don't need it, or maybe I do. But I do have that off. That also applies to taking selfies as well. So you get many of the same options when taking selfies with this device. You also have the ability to crop out a little bit to take a group selfie, which is pretty cool. And then over here in portrait mode, we're getting many of the same options. However, you can adjust the level of blur here. So if you want less blur, you can do that, or more blur, you have that ability. Same thing with the rear camera on the device. You can adjust the blur level, but this is pretty cool too. You can take your portrait photos in 4 different settings. So 24mm, 35mm, 50mm, or 85mm. Now 85mm can certainly look very unique if you frame it properly. There's also a pro mode here too. So you can adjust the autofocus, white balance, ISO, all these various things can be adjusted here. And that's a nice premium feature to see with a lower end smartphone like this one. And then under the More tab, we have a bunch of different options. So there's a document scanner. There's also night vision, panorama, ultra res as I showed you before. There's a photo booth, tilt shift, time lapse, and dual capture video. So you can capture videos with both the front and rear cameras at the same time. And then you can also change the layout. So if you want 50-50, you can also do that as well. Now, if you do want any of these options under the More tab to be in this bottom slider, simply tap on the pen icon there, and then take any of these and then drag them down below. And then also keep in mind that for certain ones, you can also take them out of the bottom slider and put them into the More tab. And then going over to More settings, there's quite a few other settings here. So there is an auto macro mode, which I actually don't like. I find that to be pretty annoying that it switches cameras as I'm getting closer to an object. So in general, I just don't think the macro mode is that good on this phone, so I would turn that off if I were you. Now there is the front photo resolution. Now by default, it's on standard, but you can make that higher if you want to. Now I think that's actually a good move to make it higher because this phone does have a lot of storage at 256 gigabytes. So it's probably unlikely that you're gonna run into issues with space on this device. So you may as well up the quality if you can. Now I really like the watermark now, especially for myself because I'm reviewing this phone. It's helpful to have the information about the photos I'm taking because I cover a lot of different phones here on the channel, but you can swipe over and change the look of the frame. So if you want to add your name as well, if you want to add the time. These various options do give you different abilities. So again, date, time, the parameters. So it'll tell you every detail about the photo you took if you want it to. And then you can even add your name as well. So that's really nice. Now, if you don't want that Google Lens option, you can turn that off. There's also AI audio, so it'll amplify the audio in the zoomed area of the viewfinder. It depends on how much you're zooming in on things when you're taking video. Efficient videos, I would not use that considering that this phone does have a lot of internal space, but it does switch it over to a different video style or format, but compatibility is limited there. We also have capture methods. So there is gesture selfies, so show your palm to take a selfie. There's also auto smile capture, and then tap anywhere to capture. I'm gonna enable all of these. We'll try the tap anywhere to capture first, and it's pretty self-explanatory. We'll try the smiling option. Cool, it's pretty responsive. And then now I'll try the palm capture. And that works really well. That's a feature I actually use a lot on the various phones that I have because I am often taking photos of myself, and the best way to start that photo is by holding up my palm. So definitely some good stuff here. If you do not want the phone to make a sound when you're taking a photo, you can turn off shutter sound. There's also capture assistant, so you can get grid lines and a level in your photo frame here. Obviously it doesn't transfer over to your final photo, but it's here to help frame your different photos. There's also keep last mode, so it'll open the camera with the last mode used. So if you do find yourself modifying different settings here, you can set this up so that the phone will always open up the camera app to go to those settings, which can definitely save you a lot of time. And that's pretty much it. So I guess the main point of this video is that I wanted to show you how many different options there are when it comes to taking a photo with this device. We're getting a lot of different cameras here on the phone. Honestly, some really good camera quality as well. So in general, I'm really happy with the cameras with the Motorola Edge 2025. But I hope you enjoyed my tips and tricks video on the Motorola Edge 2025. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. But this is Kevin here, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care and have a great rest of your day.